This whole month, actually, I've been focusing on gratitude. I led a women's retreat about gratitude at the beginning of the month. I am now practicing, I had two gratitude concerts in Lawrence, sharing a lot of the kind of music that I often share with you all here. And then on Thanksgiving, between Thanksgiving and Christmas of every year, I practice this practice that I call 26 Days of Gratitude, where I start with the A, and could just work my way through the alphabet, find one thing for each of those letters, and really sit with it and think about it, all the ways I'm grateful for that one thing, whatever it might be. And if any of you want to join me, you can join me on Facebook. I share that on Facebook every day. So it's a really wonderful experience. So at this retreat that I led, we explored a lot of gratitude practices. And then at the end of the retreat, everybody chose something that they were going to continue, at least one gratitude practice that they were going to continue with in their lives. And then we decided together that we wanted to also share this experience of 26 days of gratitude. So it's been really interesting hearing from everyone who was at that retreat over the course of the few weeks since the retreat happened, and also since the gratitude practice happened. And they have shared with me all the ways that these practices and the sharing of it have really opened them up to the grace and beauty of their everyday, which was my hope. And one of them said that this practice, well, actually what she said was that consciously using these gratitude practices each and every day has opened her eyes to the wonder in her life. And another person said, "I am amazed at how taking the time to appreciate the good and give thanks just this past month, starting with the retreat, has opened my eyes and increased my enthusiasm for everyday activities. And doing it together with you all has been an uplifting exercise in community and connection." So I just wanted to continue with that theme today and explore a little bit about why we can benefit from consciously practicing gratitude, not just to say thank you here and there, but to have a regular practice. Practicing gratitude reveals that everyone belongs and everyone is valued. So I'm going to share this list here of something, again, that one of my retreatants found and sent to me and said, "Hey, I found these benefits of gratitude online, and I just wanted to share them with you," and they're a really lovely collection. Practicing gratitude generates an experience of oneness and interconnectedness. It deepens love, compassion, and respect for all life, cultivates a sense of sufficiency and abundance, awakens kindness and generosity, inspires the impulse to serve with humility, contributes to the healing of body, mind, and spirit, unleashes joy, anchors hope and trust in life, especially in challenging times, opens us to growth and opportunity, offers pathways from conflict to peace, and is an engaged yes to a wholehearted life. Who could say no to all of that, right? And I was working my way through a gratitude course that was offered through Insight Timer. Any of you familiar with Insight Timer? It's a meditation app that's actually really great. Lots of different guided meditations and just community. And they were talking about how you can use the garden analogy. So a garden needs watering, rain, sun, good soil, nurturing. And also, in a garden, you are going to be faced with challenges and inclement weather and things like that. So likewise it is with these gratitude practices. If we want anything in our life to really flourish and have fruit, then we need to tend to it. It isn't just something that you say, "Oh, I'm going to do this," and then leave the flower there on the windowsill and never give it any water and pull the shade, right? So likewise, we have to nurture these practices, give them the time and attention that they need, remind ourselves, have tools to use just like you would in a garden. And then recognize that there might be bumps in the road, and that's okay. You just keep observing and nurturing and continuing on, and then the fruits will come. So there's been a lot of research about gratitude and what it can bring us through psychology, spirituality studies, social sciences. And what they found is that the effects of gratitude practice affect our whole being, body, mind, and spirit, all three. Practicing gratitude increases our experiences of positive emotions, so happiness and joy, fulfillment, love, curiosity, excitement, and also help us navigate through the more challenging emotions like grief and fear, sadness, etc. Social science studies have shown that practicing gratitude, the people who practice gratitude also exercise more, experience less pain, sleep better, which means falling asleep faster, sleeping longer, increased sleep quality, less sleeping during the day. It's pretty amazing, right? So you might try it right before you go to bed or have some kind of gratitude practice before you go to sleep. And it also affects our relationships. It increases our connection with others, increases our tendency to reach out to others when they are in need, more helpful to others when they are in need, and also more receptive of assistance when we are in need, and decreases loneliness and isolation. So it's pretty profound what can happen with these simple practices. It changes how we show up in our lives and in our relationships. We're more alert, alive, engaged, interested, excited about life in general. So in order to really understand gratitude and what it is, it's very important to have an embodied experience of it. And I know that we all have had those experiences at different times, and we're actually going to incorporate a meditation into this talk instead of doing it afterwards, and then we'll have a song that will be its own kind of meditation after the talk. But I wanted to share with you, and there's small pieces of gratitude, small experiences of gratitude that can happen, like when we see a baby smile or something and are grateful for the health of the child or whatever. And then there are these much larger moments that have a profound effect on our lives in a very big way, cause these shifts to happen. And I'm sure you've all experienced some of these. We're going to do a meditation that is going to ask us to call upon those experiences. But I wanted to share one of those with you here. And some of you may have heard this story before, but I'm an ovarian cancer survivor. And there were a lot of things that happened during that year, that was in 2010, that increased my experience of gratitude. Lots of things happened. But in particular, this one thing caused a very dramatic shift in my life and in my experience of life. So for the most part, I did a pretty good job of focusing on the positive and staying relatively positive. I stayed away from negative talk. I didn't use any of the kind of fighting illness and battling cancer and the F word, cancer, because I didn't want to be at war. I wanted to be at peace, and it was my body and my cells, and I'm like, I'm not going to be hating my cells and trying to kill them and all of that stuff. Let me love them to death instead. So I tried to, really have a nurturing practice. But one day in particular, and I don't remember exactly where I was in the journey. I know I'd had surgery already, but I woke up kind of not very happy and raging at God about my terrible life, and who am I to deserve all this misery? And I'd always exercised. I'd never been overweight. I never smoked. I had no family history of anything. I had always taken care of myself. I tried to deal with my emotional stuff. And here I was with ovarian cancer, which was not a good one to have. And I think maybe I didn't even know for sure what my diagnosis was yet. And I knew that ovarian cancer was the silent killer, so I wasn't sure what that meant for my life. So that day in particular, things were not good. And so I just remember thinking, who am I to deserve all of this misery, right? And a few days later, I was staying with a friend of mine with whom I had been staying kind of off and on, an older person with whom I was very close. And her husband had died a few years before. He was a little bit older, and she'd been through her own health challenges. And she had said to me, when I was going through tests and trying to figure out what it was going on. I was going in for an appointment. I'd seen an oncologist, and I was going in for another appointment. They knew I had a tumor, but they didn't think it was cancer. And she had asked me if I wanted her to go to the doctor with me the next morning. I didn't think it was cancer at that point either. And I said, oh, no, I'm good. I've been going to the doctor by myself, my whole life. I'm totally fine. And I woke up the next morning, and she said to me, Cindy, you're not going to the doctor by yourself. You can either call your mom or I'm going with you. And I thought, well, okay, you can come with me. It's fine if like that was a comfort to her. Well, that's the day I got the diagnosis. And thank goodness she was there waiting for me. So I think it was just a few days after that, a little bit of time after that, we were sitting at her table, and she was reading the newspaper. And there was a person at my church, Unity Church in Lawrence, that his name was Earl, and he was in a wheelchair, was missing both of his legs from the knees down. I didn't know him very well, but I always found the time to go say hello to him because he had the best attitude ever. He was always smiling, always joyful, and I wanted to partake of that a little bit, so I always went to say hello to him. And so I was at my friend Betty's, and she had the paper in front of her. She said, "Cindy, come here." And she was reading, and his obituary was in the paper. So we knew he was suffering, from his health, but we didn't know that he was that close to dying. And so she was reading out loud his obituary and reading about his life. And at the very end it said, "In lieu of flowers, please donate to the Cindy Novelo Recovery Fund." Right? Which it didn't exist. I mean, he was just creating it. And suddenly I was overcome with all this emotion and thinking, who am I to deserve all this grace? So many people suffering in the world. So many people that don't have support suffering in the world. But he chose me, or his family chose me, I don't know which. But I was just overcome with this experience of gratitude, immense gratitude for this gift that I was receiving beyond what I ever could have possibly expected. And a lot of things like that happened during that experience. So many people came to my aid and my assistance to support me and to just shower me with grace. And it's very interesting because grace and gratitude actually have the same root. They're both from the Latin word gratia, which means favor or kindness or esteem. And that's a derivative of gratis, which means pleasing. So very, very closely related. So I know each of you has had these times in your life. So we're going to actually do a little meditation experience now to bring this experience of gratitude into our bodies. So if you just find a comfortable seat, maybe placing your feet on the floor, connecting to the earth, and just settle in and close your eyes. Take a deep breath and allow the exhalation to release any strain or tension. Then just reflect on a moment in your life when you felt really appreciative of a person in your life or something that happened to you, something someone did for you. Take a deep breath in, a deep breath out. Take time to really remember the experience you brought to mind. The sounds, feelings, colors. Begin to notice what's happening in your body as you continue to bring this experience of profound gratitude to mind. Just begin to observe your body. Perhaps you notice a softening in the shoulders, your belly more at ease, warmth from within. Perhaps you feel a little lighter, or notice a smile forming on your lips. Notice how your body is responding to even a memory of what happened. You might notice emotions, joy, gladness, lightheartedness. You might even notice tears are present. This happens to me every time I think of Earl and his kindness. This welling up of deep emotion that brings tears. Whatever you are experiencing is totally okay. There are tears. This is entirely normal and common. Whatever you're experiencing, just notice the quality of what you're feeling. Again, if there are tears, they might be different than other tears you've experienced. Just take time to notice how your body has changed, the emotions that are coming up, and how they manifest in the body. Just observe, knowing that there is no right or wrong. You may notice new sensations. This too is part of the journey. Just notice and allow. The quality of gratitude is one of expansiveness, both physically and emotionally. And as you are ready, you can gently bring attention back into the room, gently blinking open your eyes. So did you notice shifts in your body? Perhaps things relaxing a little bit of warmth and lightness. So it's interesting because gratitude can lead us to this kind of lightness and openness, peacefulness within this expansion. So gratitude is an emotion, but it's a compound emotion that involves all these other parts. Sometimes it can even bring up a certain type of, I don't know, like sweet sadness or something, just this longing and yearning for life. That's how I experience it sometimes. Gratitude is one of the emotions that really fosters healing connection, and this expansion that makes us feel like we are part of something much larger than us. It's also an attitude and a skill. So this is the good news, right? It doesn't have to be something that we just have to wait for something outside of us to happen and then we can experience gratitude. At any moment, we can sit down and bring to mind something for which we are grateful, an experience or a person or a place. We can do that anytime. We've all had those experiences, and it has the same effect on our body and mind when we bring the memory to mind. And then we can also start to train ourselves to think differently and to actively look for things to be grateful for. So there's a very deep mental effect on our minds. It turns out that our minds are wired to be negative. It's the job of our minds to look for problems and then solve them. So something like 80% of our thoughts are negative. That's really a large percentage, right? But the good news is we can retrain our brains, and using gratitude practices actually changes the neurochemistry of our brain. Psychologist Rick Hansen says, our brain is like Velcro for negative thoughts and Teflon for positive ones. Isn't that great? So gratitude shifts us out of this negative thinking and turns the volume in the fear part of our brains down. Instead of all of this terrible stuff that might happen, we start to see positive stuff around us. And that fear of losing safety and control, the fear of loneliness and disconnection, the fear of unworthiness, those things just, it's not that they're not there, but the volume is turned way down and the volume on other things is louder, so that we'll focus on those things. Gratitude changes the channel and helps us to tap into the natural neuroplasticity of the mind, the ability to rewire our brains. And this is this very common phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together. So our brain is actually changing those neural pathways when we start to think positively, and gratitude is a way for us to do that. People who scored high in gratitude also scored high in self-compassion and very low on entitlement, meaning that they didn't constantly feel like they weren't being treated fairly. So it doesn't mean that this idea of scoring low on entitlement doesn't mean that you don't feel like you're worthy. It just means you don't constantly feel like the world's out to get you and that things should be different. So the more we cultivate gratitude, the more we are able to cultivate self-love, acceptance of ourselves and what is happening both within and around us, and love and acceptance of others. We can move out of self-pity and isolation and disconnection and move into a healthier, happier relationship to ourselves and others. So I wanted to take a moment and just look at the unity principles and see how they connect so much with gratitude. So the first two are about God is good and there's good everywhere and people are good. So clearly with gratitude we begin to see this beauty and grace that's everywhere. We start to see it in people and in the world around us. The third one talks about how thoughts create experience, right? And we just talked about that, how neurons that fire together wire together. So we're rechanging our brain, rechanging our thinking, which changes our perspective on the world, which changes our reality. The fourth one says that prayer is connection. And I love this quote by Meister Eckhart: if the only prayer you ever say in your entire life is thank you, it will be enough. So it brings us into this place of expansion and feeling connected to everyone and every time, I feel like every time I practice gratitude, that is a prayer. And then the fifth one talks about how we need to take action. And we talked about how when we feel gratitude, we're more engaged with the world, we're more excited. So with a grateful heart, we can now interact with the world differently. We engage with the world and those around us in a way that is more alert, alive, interested, enthusiastic, and with less envy, anger, bitterness, and regret. I love this word in particular, enthusiastic. It actually comes from in theos, in God. So that's what that means, to be stepping into this power and beauty of abundance in our lives. Cheryl Strayed, the author of Wild, says, we can all have a better life if we make it so. And that's what gratitude does for us. It makes our life better. She talks about how many people who try to live as an artist, whether it's a writer, a musician, or whatever, give up because it's challenging. But those who decide to stay are those who've chosen to have an attitude of gratitude. They've chosen to see the abundance around them. And I know that this has certainly been true in my life. There's many times in my family, we're all in that camp, camp scarcity. There's not enough, there's never gonna be enough. Both my parents are from the Depression era and gotta save everything. And sometimes I have found myself, well, often actually in my life, I was in that mindset, oh my gosh, I can't do this, and I can't afford that, and I can't do the other. And then I'm like, yes, I can. The money's right there in the bank. Okay, the pack rats chewed up the wires of my engine. Yes, that happened. And yes, it's gonna cost me $450. And no, I was not planning that, but the money's right there in my account. All I have to go do is put it on my credit card and it'll be paid for, and that's that, It's fine. So many times I've had to just retrain my thinking. It's not true I don't have enough. I've got a house that's paid for, I've got plenty of food, I never have to worry about that, and even if something happened, I've got friends and family, etc. And that's the case for most of us, really. It's just this thing in our mind that's telling us something different. So I just want to close with a couple of quotes about sanctity and how gratitude helps us see the sacred in everything. Albert Einstein said, there are only two ways to live your life, as though nothing is a miracle or as though everything is. And the word marvel, miracle comes from the word marvel, which actually means to live in awe, which is to see the sacred in everything. Matthew Fox, this wonderful former Benedictine monk who wrote a book called Original Blessing, after which he was asked to leave the Catholic Church. But he's a wonderful spiritual leader. He says, there is only one thing wrong with the world. It is that we have lost our sense of the sacred. Water is sacred. The soil is sacred. Trees are sacred. Whales, foxes, insects are sacred. Human nature is sacred, and thus so is that which we create, music, architecture, literature, etc. When we rediscover this, everything is transformed. Our work becomes sacred. Education becomes sacred. Relationships become sacred. The real miracle is existence itself. Gratitude begins here with gratitude for life itself. So I close with this Buddhist prayer, which says, waking up this morning, I smile. 24 brand new hours are before me. I wish you all the deepest gratitude today and every day.